The sun rises slow over the Iranian desert. Orange light spills across the sand like water finding its way through stone. I watch it from the entrance of our shelter, feeling the cold of night still clinging to my bones. Soon, the heat will come. It always does. Soraya is already awake. She moves quietly behind me, gathering the clay pot, the worn wooden bowl, the small pouch of flour we have been saving. I do not need to turn around to know what she is doing. After so many years, I can read her movements like wind patterns in the sand. Today we make bread, real bread, the kind my grandmother used to make when I was young, before I understood how precious such simple things could be. But first, we need wood, good wood, the kind that burns slow and hot, the kind that turns flour and water into something that sustains life. I stand and stretch my back. The cold has settled into my joints overnight, a reminder that I am not as young as the desert demands. 55 years have passed over me like sandstorms, each one leaving its mark. But I am still here. We are still here. Soraya looks up at me. Her dark eyes hold a question I already know. I nod. She returns to her work, and I reach for my turban, wrapping it carefully around my head. The fabric is worn thin in places, but it still protects. That is all that matters out here. Function over beauty, survival over comfort. The desert stretches before me, vast and unforgiving. Scattered rocks break the monotony of sand and dust. Dry bushes cling to life in the shadows of larger stones, their roots reaching deep for moisture that may or may not exist. This is my hunting ground today, not for animals, but for wood. Rare wood, the kind that makes all the difference between a meal and a memory. I take my first steps into the morning. Behind me, Soraya begins to measure flour into the bowl. We work apart, but we work together. This is how it has always been. The sand shifts beneath my worn leather sandals. Each step requires thought, requires attention. The desert punishes those who walk without awareness. I learned this lesson many times before it finally stayed with me. Now I read the ground like others read books. Every ripple tells a story. Every shadow holds meaning. I am looking for tamarisk. The old wood, the dead branches that have dried in the sun for seasons. This wood burns differently than the fresh scrub that dots the landscape. It holds heat like a promise. It releases it slowly, evenly, perfectly for baking. Soraya taught me this. Her grandmother taught her. Knowledge passed down like inheritance, more valuable than gold. The first hour yields little. I find scattered twigs, brittle branches that would burn too fast, give too little. I gather them anyway. Even poor wood has its uses. But I keep searching for the prize, the thick branches of aged tamarisk that will make today's bread something worth remembering. The sun climbs higher. The cold retreats, replaced by warmth that will soon become oppressive heat. I have perhaps 3 hours before the desert becomes truly dangerous, before the sun transforms from friend to enemy. I quicken my pace, moving toward a rocky outcrop I noticed yesterday. Where there are rocks, there is often shade. Where there is shade, plants sometimes grow larger, stronger, before they die and become the wood I seek. Back at our camp, Soraya works with the patience of stone being shaped by wind. I can picture her hands moving through the flour, adding water drop by precious drop. She knows exactly how much moisture the dough needs. She feels it in her fingers, a knowledge that cannot be taught with words. I have watched her do this countless times, and still it seems like magic. She adds a pinch of salt. We have little left, but bread without salt is bread without soul. She knows this. She makes the sacrifice without hesitation, trusting that we will find more, or learn to live without. This is her way, practical yet hopeful, grounded yet reaching. I reach the rocky outcrop and begin my search in earnest. The shade here is deeper, and I can see the remains of what was once a substantial tamarisk bush. Most of it has been claimed by time and previous travelers, but I spot several thick branches wedged between rocks, overlooked by those who came before. My heart lifts. This is exactly what I was hoping to find. I work carefully to extract the wood. The branches are dense and heavy, exactly what we need. I stack them in a bundle, using strips of cloth to bind them together. The load is substantial, perhaps 10 kilograms. Enough to last several days if we are careful, enough to bake bread today and tomorrow and perhaps the day after. But I am greedy. I want more. Winter is coming, and winter in the desert is not what outsiders imagine. The cold cuts deep. Fires become not just comfort but survival. So I keep searching, moving around the outcrop, checking every shadow and crevice. In a narrow gap between two large boulders, I find treasure. An entire dead tamarisk, small but intact, its branches reaching up like arms frozen in prayer. The wood is old, perfectly seasoned by years of sun and wind. I feel a surge of gratitude so strong it nearly brings me to my knees. The desert gives when it chooses. Today, it has chosen to give generously. I spend the next hour carefully breaking down the small tree, sorting branches by thickness, bundling them with practiced efficiency. By the time I finish, I have enough wood to last a week or more. My shoulders ache with the weight of what I must carry, but it is a good ache. The ache of abundance rather than want. The sun has risen to its mid-morning position. Heat waves shimmer on the horizon, distorting the landscape into something liquid and uncertain. I begin the long walk back to camp, my bundles of wood balanced across my shoulders like a yoke. Each step is deliberate, paced to conserve energy. The desert teaches economy of movement. Waste nothing. Not water, not food, not even the strength in your legs. I think of Sahara as I walk. By now she has finished the dough. It will be resting in the shade, covered with a cloth, the yeast doing its patient work of transformation. She will have prepared the stone, the flat rock she uses for baking, positioning it where the fire can heat it evenly. Everything will be ready. Everything is always ready when Sahara is in charge. She sees things I miss. This has been true since the beginning. I remember the first time I truly understood this, though I do not dwell on the details. What matters is that I learned to trust her perception, her instincts. When she says the dough is ready, it is ready. When she says the fire is too hot or too cold, she is never wrong. Halfway back to camp, I stop to rest in the shadow of a large rock. The wood is heavy, and I am no longer young. I drink sparingly from the water skin at my belt, just enough to wet my mouth and throat. Water is life out here, and we never have enough of it. Every drop is accounted for, every swallow measured against future need. I close my eyes for a moment and let the shade wash over me. The desert is silent, except for the whisper of wind across sand. No birds here, no insects buzzing. Just the vast emptiness that can feel oppressive or peaceful, depending on your state of mind. Today, it feels peaceful. I have wood. Sahara is making bread. For this moment, at least, we have enough. When I open my eyes, I notice something I had overlooked before. A small plant growing in the crack of the rock, its leaves gray-green and aromatic. I lean closer and recognize it immediately. Wild thyme. Sahara uses this in her cooking, adds it to bread sometimes for flavor. I carefully pinch off several sprigs, tucking them into my vest pocket. A small gift. A tiny abundance to add to the larger one I am already carrying. The second half of the journey is harder than the first. The sun is higher now, the heat more intense. My shoulders burn from the weight of the wood, and my legs begin to feel the strain of walking through soft sand. But I keep moving, one step at a time, my eyes fixed on the distant point where I know our camp waits. Sahara spots me before I spot her. She is standing at the edge of our camp, shading her eyes with one hand, watching for my return. When she sees me, she raises her hand briefly in acknowledgement. No waving, no shouting, just that simple gesture that says everything. I am here. You are there. All is well. I arrive at camp and lower the bundles of wood with a groan of relief. My back protests, my shoulders ache, but the satisfaction of seeing so much good wood piled beside our shelter outweighs all discomfort. Soraya examines the wood with an expert eye, selecting branches for today's fire, setting others aside for future use. She finds the thickest pieces of aged tamarisk and nods with approval. These are perfect for baking bread. They will create a bed of coals that maintains steady heat for as long as she needs. I watch her work, still catching my breath, and feel a familiar surge of admiration. Her hands know things mine have forgotten, perhaps things mine never knew. I reach into my pocket and present the sprigs of wild thyme. Soraya takes them, brings them to her nose, inhales deeply. A rare smile crosses her face, brief but genuine. She tucks the herbs into her own pocket, patting them once as if to secure a promise. Tonight's bread will carry the taste of the desert itself. Now, the real work begins. Soraya takes charge of building the fire, selecting the wood I have gathered with the precision of an artist choosing colors. She starts with the smaller, faster-burning pieces, creating a foundation of flame. Then she adds the larger branches of tamarisk, positioning them just so to maximize airflow and heat distribution. I watch and learn, as I have watched and learned for years. There is a science to fire, but also an art. Soraya understands both. She knows when to add wood and when to wait, when to stoke the flames, and when to let them breathe. Under her guidance, the fire grows from spark to flame to roaring blaze, then settles into the steady, pulsing heat we need for baking. While the fire builds its bed of coals, Soraya retrieves the dough. It has risen beautifully, doubled in size, the yeast having worked its ancient magic. She sets the bowl beside the fire to warm slightly, then begins to prepare her baking stone. This flat rock has served us for years, its surface seasoned by countless loaves, darkened and smoothed by heat and use. She positions the stone on a makeshift frame over the coals, allowing it to heat evenly from below. I have helped her build this arrangement many times, and I move now without instruction, finding the right rocks to support the weight, adjusting angles to catch the heat properly. We work in silence, our movements synchronized by long practice. The stone heats slowly, radiating warmth into the air around it. Soraya tests it periodically, flicking drops of water onto the surface to watch how quickly they sizzle and evaporate. When the temperature is right, she nods to herself and turns to the dough. What happens next is something I never tire of watching. Soraya's hands move through the dough with a rhythm that seems almost musical. She punches it down, folds it over, stretches and shapes with movements passed down through generations. Her grandmother taught her, just as my grandfather taught me, to find water in places where water seems impossible. Knowledge that cannot be written down. Knowledge that must be lived. She tears off a portion of dough and begins to flatten it, pressing with her palms, stretching with her fingers. The wild thyme emerges from her pocket, and she works the aromatic leaves into the dough, distributing them evenly throughout. The smell reaches me even from where I sit, green and sharp against the dusty desert air. I prepare for my next task while she shapes the bread. We will need water for later, and the nearest source is a seep we discovered 2 days ago, a half-hour walk to the east. The container is already cleaned and ready. I fill my water skin, check that my sandals are secure, and prepare for another journey. Soraya glances up as I gather my things. She knows where I'm going without being told. Our eyes meet, and in that brief contact, an entire conversation takes place. Be careful. I will. Return soon. I will. I love you. I know. all of it said without a single word spoken aloud. I leave the camp as the first round of bread goes onto the hot stone. The dough sizzles and pops, releasing that unmistakable aroma that triggers hunger and memory in equal measure. I carry that smell with me as I walk, a promise of what awaits when I return. The walk to the water seep is familiar now. I follow the same route I have taken before, navigating by landmarks that mean nothing to outsiders, but everything to me. A rock shaped like a sleeping camel, a dry bush with branches that point east, a depression in the sand where water once gathered during long ago rains. Each marker brings me closer to the precious resource we need. The seep is not much to look at, a dark patch of sand at the base of a rocky slope, barely visible unless you know what to look for. But when I dig down a few inches, water appears. Muddy at first, then clearing as I wait. I scoop it carefully into the container, letting the sediment settle before taking the cleaner water from the top. This is a skill unto itself, one that took me years to master. Patience in all things. The desert rewards those who wait. I fill the container slowly, maximizing the quality of water I collect. The seep refills faster than I expected today, a good sign. Perhaps there is moisture deep in the earth, remnants of some distant rain making its gradual way to the surface. I offer silent thanks for this small blessing and continue my careful work. By the time the container is full, the sun has moved noticeably across the sky. Midday approaches, and with it, the peak of the desert heat. I secure the precious water and begin my return journey, moving with purpose, but not haste. The container is heavy, and spilling even a drop would be a tragedy. As I walk, I think about the bread that waits. The first loaf will be finished by now, perhaps cooling on a rock while the second one bakes. Soraya will have everything under control. She always does. Her competence is a gift I do not take for granted, a foundation upon which our survival is built. I remember the first bread she ever made for me, though I do not dwell on the circumstances. What I remember is the taste, the warmth, the way she watched my face as I took the first bite. Food prepared with skill and care tastes different than food prepared out of mere necessity. Soraya's bread has always tasted like love, though I would never embarrass either of us by saying so aloud. The camp comes into view, and I see smoke rising from our fire, a thin gray column against the pale blue sky. The smell reaches me before I arrive, that combination of baking bread and burning tamarisk that means home, wherever we happen to be. My steps quicken despite the weight I carry. Soraya has been busy in my absence. 2 loaves of bread rest on a flat rock near the fire, their crusts golden brown and dotted with the dark green flecks of wild thyme. A 3rd loaf is currently on the baking stone, bubbling and rising in the steady heat. Our camp is organized and tidy, everything in its proper place, the disorder of morning replaced by the order she creates wherever we go. I set down the water container with relief, flexing my shoulders and rolling my neck. Soraya acknowledges my return with a glance, her attention focused on the bread she is tending. She has a long stick with a flat end, and she uses it to nudge the loaf, checking its underside for doneness. Her focus is complete, meditative. I do not interrupt. Instead, I busy myself with smaller tasks. I organize the wood I gathered earlier, stacking it properly so it will stay dry if unexpected rain should come. I check our supplies, making mental note of what we have and what we need. I examine my sandals for wear, finding the leather thin in places, but still serviceable. These small jobs fill the time while Soraya works her magic with bread and fire. The 3rd loaf finishes and joins its companions on the cooling rock. Soraya stretches her back, closes her eyes briefly, then returns to the remaining dough. She has enough for 2 more loaves, perhaps 3 if she stretches it. This is abundance by our standards. This is wealth beyond measure. I move to sit beside the fire, soaking in its warmth despite the heat of the day. There is something comforting about flames that transcends temperature. Fire is life. Fire is civilization. Fire is the line between survival and surrender. I have sat beside countless fires in my years, and each one has felt like a small miracle. Soraya places another round of dough on the baking stone. The sizzle and steam rise immediately, carrying the scent of bread and herbs into the still air. She uses her flat stick to press down the center slightly, ensuring even cooking. Her movements are efficient, practiced, almost automatic. Yet I know that attention lies behind every gesture. Nothing she does is truly automatic. Everything is intentional. I think about the years that have brought us to this moment. Not the details, but the arc of it, the journey from there to here. We have seen good times and hard times, seasons of plenty and seasons of desperate want. Through it all, we have remained. Through it all, we have worked together. This partnership is the greatest accomplishment of my life, greater than any shelter I have built or water source I have found. The fourth loaf finishes cooking. Soraya slides it off the stone with practiced ease, setting it aside to cool. One more round of dough remains. She shapes it carefully, adding the last of the wild thyme, stretching it slightly thinner than the others to make the final loaf as large as possible. I watch her fingers work, amazed as always by their skill and precision. The sun has passed its zenith and begins its slow descent toward the western horizon. The heat remains intense, but the quality of light is changing, softening. Shadows grow longer, reaching across the sand like fingers stretching after sleep. The desert is beautiful in this light, harsh and unforgiving, but beautiful nonetheless. Soraya places the final loaf on the stone. This one she watches more carefully than the others, perhaps because it is the last, perhaps because she wants it to be perfect. I watch her watching the bread, and I feel a wave of emotion I cannot name. Gratitude, perhaps, or something deeper than gratitude, something that has no word in any language I know. The bread finishes. Soraya removes it from the fire and sets it with the others. 5 loaves in total, golden and aromatic, enough to sustain us for days if we are careful. She surveys her work with quiet satisfaction, then turns to me with a look that needs no translation. We have done well. We will eat tonight. But first, there is more work to do. The fire must be banked for the night, coals preserved for tomorrow's cooking. Our sleeping area must be prepared, blankets shaken free of sand and dust. Water must be measured and allocated. The rituals of evening in the desert, familiar as breathing, essential as heartbeat. We work together on these tasks, moving around each other with the ease of long partnership. I bank the fire while Soraya arranges our sleeping area. She checks our food stores while I secure the water container. No words needed, no discussion necessary. We know what must be done, and we do it. As the sun touches the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red and deepening blue, we finally sit down to eat. Soraya tears the first loaf in half, the bread steaming slightly in the cooling air. She hands me my portion, and our fingers brush briefly in the exchange. Such a small contact, such a universe of meaning in that touch. I bite into the bread and close my eyes. The taste is everything I remembered, everything I hoped for. The wild thyme sings against my tongue, a green note in the warm, wheaty base. The crust crackles between my teeth. The interior is soft, perfectly cooked, holding just enough moisture to feel alive. This is not merely food. This is art. This is love, made tangible. Soraya eats beside me, her eyes on the sunset. We do not speak. There is nothing to say that the bread does not already communicate. We are here. We are fed. We are together. What more could words add to such a moment? The colors of sunset deepen and fade, Stars begin to appear, first one, then several, then more than I can count. The fire crackles softly beside us, its glow replacing the fading sunlight. The temperature drops, the desert releasing its heat to the vast emptiness of space. I reach for my blanket and drape it across my shoulders. Soraya moves closer, sharing the warmth of her body against the coming cold. I feel her shoulder against mine, her presence solid and real. We have survived another day. We have gathered wood, baked bread, found water. The simple accomplishments that mean everything when everything else has been stripped away. I think about what we have built, not in terms of structures or shelters, but in terms of this life we share. It is not an easy life. The desert makes sure of that. But it is our life, shaped by our hands and our choices, meaningful in ways that easier lives might not be. We have learned to find joy in small things because small things are all we have. And we have discovered that small things, truly appreciated, are not small at all. The bread in my hands is proof of this. Such a simple thing, bread, flour and water and yeast and salt. Yet today it represents so much more. The wood I carried on my aching shoulders. The fire Soraya built with such care. The dough she shaped with hands that hold generations of knowledge. The wild thyme I found in a crack between rocks. Every element combined into something greater than the sum of its parts. I eat another bite, chewing slowly, savoring every nuance of flavor and texture. Beside me, Soraya does the same. The fire pops and settles, sending a small shower of sparks into the night air. The stars wheel slowly overhead, the same stars that have watched over this desert for millennia. The same stars that will continue long after we are dust. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. There is always something needed, something lacking, something to search for or build or repair. The desert never lets you rest completely. But tonight,
we have enough. Tonight, we are full. Tonight, the bread we share is a celebration of survival and partnership. Soraya's head drifts toward my shoulder, and I feel the weight of her trust, her exhaustion, her contentment. I adjust my position slightly to make her more comfortable, and she settles against me with a small sigh. Her breathing slows and deepens.
Sleep comes easily when the belly is full and the fire is warm. I remain awake a little longer, watching the flames dance and the stars turn. The fire casts moving shadows on the sand around us, creating a small circle of light in the vast darkness of the desert night. Within this circle, we are safe. Within this circle, we are home. I think about the morning to come, the wood we still have stacked and ready, the bread that will sustain us through several more days. I think about the seep that is still flowing, the water that will be there when we return. I think about all the small mercies that make our life possible, and I feel a gratitude so deep it borders on prayer. The desert is not our enemy. I have said this before, and I will say it again. The desert is our teacher, demanding and unforgiving but ultimately fair. It asks everything of us, and in return, it gives us everything we truly need. Not comfort, not ease, but purpose, meaning, the knowledge that we are capable of more than we ever imagined. Soraya stirs slightly in her sleep, her hand reaching out to rest on my arm. I cover her hand with mine, feeling the calluses on her palms, the evidence of all her hard work. These hands made bread today. These hands have healed wounds and started fires and shaped our life into something worth living. I am fortunate beyond measure to have these hands as my companion. The fire burns lower now, the flames subsiding into the steady glow of coals. I should add another log to keep it burning through the night, but I am reluctant to move, reluctant to disturb the peace of this moment. So I wait, watching the coals pulse with inner light, feeling Soraya's warmth against my side. Finally, gently, I ease myself free and reach for a log from our pile. The wood I gathered this morning, the aged tamarisk that burns so perfectly. I place it carefully on the coals and watch as it catches, new flames licking up around the edges. The fire revives, casting fresh light and warmth into our small circle of safety. Sahara does not wake. She has earned her rest, has worked as hard as I have, or harder. I settle back beside her, pulling the blanket tighter around both of us. The night is cold now, the desert releasing the last of the day's heat to the indifferent stars. But we are warm, we are fed, we are together. Tomorrow we will eat the bread she baked today, and it will remind us of this evening, this satisfaction, this moment of perfect sufficiency. Tomorrow we will face whatever the desert puts before us, and we will face it as we always have, side by side. Tomorrow will have its own challenges and its own small victories. But tonight is for rest. Tonight is for gratitude. Tonight is for the simple miracle of bread shared beside a fire under the desert stars. I close my eyes and let sleep approach. The last thing I see is the fire, steady and warm. The last thing I feel is Sahara beside me. The last thing I know is peace. The desert has given us another day. We have used it well. This is what survival means. Not just staying alive, but living, finding beauty in hardship, finding abundance in scarcity, finding each other in the emptiness. The fire whispers its ancient song. The stars turn their eternal dance. And somewhere deep in the desert, water waits to be found, wood waits to be gathered, bread waits to be made tomorrow, always tomorrow. But tonight we rest.